Hi guys, welcome to this session on Microsoft Visio. In this module, I want to have a look at the Business Process Model and Notation Diagram, BPMN. And as you can see, I've got a link there, so I'm just going to click on that and create. So when you activate a diagram, you've got some pool or lane tools. So I'm going to drag what looks like a lane, but in fact that is going to be a pool. If I click on that, because it's going to have more than one lane, if I move my mouse into the bottom left hand corner, I can create another lane, and then this becomes a pool. So there's more than one. You've got the title option there. If I'll just call it test. You can just label these by just double clicking on them. Test 1 and then test 2. And then if you want a separate pool with one lane or more, you just drag that on at the bottom there, and you can do exactly the same. Just call that customer 1, and so you set the scene, if you like, and then you've got some basic stencils. You've got a gateway, decision, a task, intermediate event, an end event, and then some process, sequence, flows, message flows, associations, etc., etc. And you can have a collapsed sub-process with a link to another sheet with another sub-process on it. So let's just start this off. So what I want to show you in this video is what happens when you check the diagram, because this check diagram has got some rules to use. Now if you want to know what these rules are, you can find out these rules on the internet, but basically there are set rules for these types of diagrams that you should comply with, so everybody's got the same hymn sheet, and you can search for that and it will tell you what they are. But if you create a diagram that doesn't marry up to those rules, this will tell you, and sometimes it can be a bit frustrating because you think you've done it right and you haven't, because the diagram says there's an error message, or gives you an error message, and you have to correct it. But let's see if I can do something really simple. Let's get a start event, and as with all of these, you can just use this little toolbar that appears there to give you a series of steps. So I'll just go for that one, and then I'll just pick an end. So that's a start, and then a task. I'll just call that task 1, and then an end. So that's very simplistic. So if I go to check diagram, everything is okay, which I would expect it to be. So now if I try and mess this up, so I'll go like this, I'll put a decision there. Now you can't just have that sitting in these type of diagrams, just sitting like that. It just doesn't make sense. So I'm assuming that's going to give me an error message, and it does. So it's basically telling you can't. Well, if you hover over this, it basically tells you what the issue is. So if I click on that, so if I click off that, for example, and then click on this one, it highlights, so that's the end, but I've got something after the end. And if I click on that one, it's telling me there that that's a decision, so you need something coming out both ways. So this thing here, this decision at the end, has caused the problem, and the design check diagram feature has picked that up. So I'll delete that off because I don't want that. And then I'm going to do the same thing underneath. I'm going to start an event, use this little tool to create a task, and then another task, and then let's do another one. So three tasks. Let's come up one. Now let's see what this does. If I do a check diagram, start and end, I used, so it must have an outgoing sequence flow, so there's nothing coming off the end of this. It doesn't stop with that. So if I put an end on that, close that one down. So these, I'm not making any sense with what I'm doing here, but I'm just trying to show you how you can use these diagrams. Basically, very quickly you can create a diagram up. Let's have a decision on this one. So when you put a decision in, remember it's got to have something coming out. So let's go for a process and another process on that one, and then we'll go end. So that's how that would work. You'd have a decision coming out. Now you can, if you want, you can see you've got a shape here which is expanded sub-process or collapsed sub-process. So if I click on that, and let's say I want a collapse, see what happened there? Because I've got that selected, if I hover over this, there's the normal things, but then you get that option coming up, and that's the one I want. So I'll click on the line, and then it puts the line in for me. Now you've also got communication lines and sequence flows and things like that. So I've got a message flow there. So this sort of diagram, this process could be having a communication link into this. So send an email or something like that. So if I click on that one and then just hover over this, it'll see that there's a box underneath it, and then I just click on the line. And then what you can do is change the line type. If I right click on this line, it's at the moment a sequence, but now I want it to be a message, and then you get a dotted line. And if I just right click on that again, you can see you've got associating as well, which is association, that type of line. So same with these boxes. If you click into a box, if I right click on these box, you've got loop. Is this a standard loop? Does it do parallel or whatever? Or type. So this one, let's say this is a user. If I click on user, you get a little man in the corner, so it's a user going to do that. If I right click on this one, task type, user again, and let's say that this is an automated process, so I could say task type is going to be script, so it's just a computer script, and you get a different symbol. Now I've got shape data, the shape data window active, so you can see the standard boxes that's in there. So it's got the type there. So on this one I haven't got, it's a script, but let's put a loop on it. So if I put a loop on it, sequential loop, then it fills it in there for you as well. And again, you can edit these and add extra boxes if you want. Now this one I created was for a sub process, which I haven't got, but on the toolbar for process you've got create new or link to one that's already been created. So it's going to just create a hyperlink. So if I just click on create new, so it's gone to page 2 and it's created a hyperlink to page 2, and if I hold my control key down, that changes to the hand and I go to page 2, and there's nothing on page 2, but you could do another process there. So if I start an event, it won't like start an event, but you'll get the idea. And then I'll just do a few processes, a few tasks should I say, and then end like so. So I'll go back onto the page 1, that is a hyperlink to page 2. If I hold my control key down, I can click on that, and then you've got your sub process there. You can also create a sub process manually. So if I click on a shape and hold my control key down, see I've highlighted those, and then you've got this option, so I can create a sub process. It's created page 3, so on page 3 that's all dropped onto there, and again you've got a hyperlink control key to that page like so. And if you wanted to put a off-page reference to get back, you can do, so you're not jumping back between pages. You just search for off-page reference up there and then put it on there and get it to link to whichever page you came from, which in this case was page 1. And the other thing you can do is, if you wanted to, let's do it on page 3, you can highlight shapes. So let's just highlight shapes, and you can add a container to that shape. So what I've done there is I've just right clicked and add to new container, and then you've got a heading, I'll call it testing for example, and then that container's there, and they're in that container. You can move them out, so I didn't click on that, which is not great. I'll do undo. If I right click on this, you've got container, fit to contents, and if I right click again you've got container and other options there, lock container, and then things shouldn't move out. That one is not in the container, so it's just those 3, which will stop you adding anything into the container, and that's not a great example of this diagram. Now because I've been messing about with this and not really paying much attention to what I'm creating, I can guarantee when I click on the process option and check diagram, it's going to come up with something. So script or manual tasks, yeah, because it's not liking that. Must not have an incoming. Let's have a hover over this. Let's click on that one. When start and end events are used, a task or collapse sub-process must have an outgoing sequence flow unless it is a compensation activity. So there's nothing coming out of that, so that's okay. So we'd have to correct that. Now if I just close that one off and let's go back to page 2. Page 2's got a little diagram that we did in page 3. So this is just a very quick look at this type of diagram. So normally it's referred to as a BPMN diagram, and you get it from the start menu and flowcharts. So hopefully that was of use to you, and if the first time you've had a look at that, go on the internet, search for it, and you'll get loads and loads of information of how to use these diagrams. But this is how to create one in Visio. So hopefully that was of use to you, and I thank you for your time, and I'll see you on the next one.